Happy Tuesday and welcome to the second installment of the Spectrum of Fatherhood. We are so excited here at Moms of Black Boys United during Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month to bring you this series coming from Black dads, an opportunity for them to share their journey, to hear firsthand and in their voice what it has been like to raise a young man on the spectrum. Today is no different. We are joined today by Jamiel Owens. He is the proud father of a young man named Shane, who is 16 years old, and he works for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, family relations coordinator, and he specializes in autism. His story is amazing, how he got there, what's been going on, and we are just so excited to be sitting with you, Jamiel. How are you this evening?
I'm good. Beautiful weather. I can't complain. I'm just blessed and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So I want to start out just by, talking a little bit about your family. How many children do you have? And tell us a little bit more about Shane.
So I'm a part of a blended family. My wife, she has 3 adult kids. Myself, I have 2, with one being a toddler who will be 2 on Friday. So we're going through that. Shane's 16. He turned 16 about 3 weeks ago. So
Mhm.
now I have a teenager. So yeah, we pretty much have a pretty big family, but
Mhm.
um, you know what, having a teenager, I can just remember holding Shane and now repeating the cycle all over again is just crazy to me, especially at 42. That's something you don't really get a chance to actually see. Not a lot of people, but definitely a blessing.
Listen, I 100%. I have a few people, and here recently, I've interviewed a few people on the podcast who are having children later in life, and
Mm,
not first children.
mm.
Like I have a 20-something-year-old and I have a 1-year-old,
Oh,
and it's like I'm a grandfather and I have a newborn. And all I can say is kudos to you guys because I know it cannot be me.
I don't know if y'all see the bags under my eyes. It might be hidden because I'm smiling, but no, this is definitely not for the weak. If
Yeah,
you're
and
weak
like
or a little faint at heart, then you're not going to survive because
no.
getting up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, not on purpose, but just because you're getting small smacks on your back from a newborn and saying, let's go, is definitely, or a toddler, I should say, is definitely not, it's definitely not good. Definitely not good. But I'm enjoying it. And it goes a little bit into my story because unfortunately I wasn't around for that pieces segment in Shane's life. So I'm definitely being blessed with the opportunity to kind of do to fix my wrongs per se. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. So you touched on it. Why don't you go ahead and just share a little bit more about that?
All right. I mean, 100% transparency. I definitely wasn't, a man of my word or even considered a man at that time. I wasn't around for Shane's early part of his life
Mhm,
because I was having an issue processing the diagnosis.
mhm,
That was something that affected my ego and my pride too much. This is often being felt by a lot of autism fathers when it really shouldn't be about us. It should really be about our partners
mhm,
and also our children, the ones who actually are living the diagnosis. But, I could pretty much say that I was a boy in that mentality, just trying to understand why God did this to me. Why was I being cursed with a child with this condition or
mhm.
or characteristics within his life, and I wanted to hit that restart button. I wanted to, just kind of just leave this situation or this marriage at that time and kind of see who else I can make my partner and have another child. That's as transparent as I can get. And unfortunately, there's a lot of men out here that actually take that mindset. And that mindset is very dangerous because, at that point in time when I received that diagnosis, my interpretation should have been, hey, to Shane's mom, what can I do to help you process this? How are you feeling? How can I be supportive and letting you know that this is not your fault? And then also hug on my son a little bit more tightly and start to understand who he is as a new person with this diagnosis. But I didn't do that. So I missed out on the first about 2 years, 2 years, going close to 3 years of his life, because obviously divorce and things like that take an emotional toll.
Mhm.
And his mom just upped and moved out of Philadelphia without informing me. And the only reason why she actually contacted me to let me know where she was at with my son is because my son called the trash man daddy.
Wow.
And she literally reached out to me and said, "You need to come see your son. Here are the boundaries and the parameters in which you're going to see your son." And I gladly took it. And I remember just getting to him and kissing him and hugging him, and I didn't care about anything else. And at the time, I wasn't even driving, so I was taking public transportation. It took me 3 hours to get up to see him, 4 hours to get back home. So it was worth it. It was something that I had to do, and we just sat on the steps, and I visit him for a half an hour, and I didn't really care at that point because I missed so much of that important time with him, because I was being ignorant to my own arrogance. I was being, arrogant and egotistical and prideful about what the society says that a normal child should be, or who we are as men when we produce children who do not fit into the standards of what society claim as normal. So I want to encourage any man who maybe already took that step to separate from your family is to go back to your family. It's never too late to apologize and pick up the torch where you left it at and rekindle those relationships. But it's not going to be easy. You're going to take a lot of hardship and a lot of pain with that because you bought that. So with that, that's your responsibility to kind of absorb that and always look towards the positive, the end goal, which is establishing a relationship with your child, and a great positive relationship with either your wife, your ex-wife, whatever the case may be, the mother of that child.
So you said so much right there. I want to unpack a little bit of that. So let's start out with, when did you get the diagnosis? How old was Shane when he was diagnosed?
Shane was 3 when
Mhm.
he got the diagnosis. So I right before the diagnosis and going into after the diagnosis, I wasn't really around because of other issues that were going on in my life. Things that was going on with my mom. She was actually living on the street. She was homeless for years.
Mhm.
And that was my sole parent at the time. I didn't know where my dad was at. So I
Mhm.
was dealing with that and trying to process the losing of what I consider my best friend. And then getting the news that my wife at the time was pregnant, and it wasn't the best reaction, because I was scared. And as men sometimes are scared, reaction sometimes come off as disappointment or regret or things of that nature. And that's what I gave her, was like, what are we going to do? Like, what am I going to do with a child? Because I was scared, because living on my own at the tender age of 16, I understood the importance of having an engaged parent. I didn't even know how to be a parent, because my mom only was there until about 16, and then I was on my own for the rest of the year. So it was very traumatic for me. But once again, why show that vulnerable side, to my wife, when I have a ego and a pride to obtain in society? That was my downfall.
And I think that, this is a conversation about your journey, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about toxic masculinity, like the idea of who a Black man is supposed to be by society standards, or who the messaging that you receive, I should say, because it's not what you're supposed to be, but the messaging that you receive, and what it means to help produce children, especially a boy child. And
Mhm.
so you said you didn't know where your dad was, and your mom, after 16 or so, was not in your life. What was influencing you at that point?
The streets, everything at that point. I'm an 80s baby growing up in the 90s, 2000s. The streets, music, everything that we got to be cognizant about, everything we ingest. And that can be visual, that can be listening to things. These things are detrimental to our thought process. Whether we can sit there and say that we're strong, no, I don't allow that to hinder my thoughts or by any way. subconsciously it actually does that. So a lot of it was due to societal, just pressures and music and fashion. The norm that you had to get money, you had to be this type of rich guy, or you had to drive this certain car or work this certain job. All of those things played a factor into my life, because at 16, raising yourself, you're kind of like lost, like, where am I going to go?
Mm,
um and trying to navigate that is hard, especially when you're just trying to make do with what you have. So you always pressure yourself to get more, that hustler mentality, which
mm,
is not wrong.
mm,
If you want to take it out of that and look at a spiritual context, which I hold myself accountable to these days, which helps me kind of navigate through this life. um,
mhm,
you reap what you sow. So
mm,
if I'm out here and I'm sowing seeds, good seeds, my harvest or my reaping is going to be good. It may not be within that year, it may not be within that 5 years, but it's definitely going to come around,
right.
because of that masculinity, that toxic form in which I was ingesting. I was stealing from people, I was lying from people, I was using women, I was doing all these things because in my mentality is survival of the fittest. So I need to be at the top of the food chain by any means necessary. And that's ultimately my destruction, because those seeds that I sowed at that time were all negative. And trust me, I got every single one of that harvest back, and I might be still due for more. I don't know. It's all by His grace what He wants to instill in me. I heard a lot of people, including family. I heard a lot of people, but that's a part of the learning process, is owning that and trying to not be that person like you were in the past.
Yeah. So one of the things that Mob United has been working on is the Grace campaign. So first and foremost, I want to congratulate you on just having the inner fight and having the inner understanding that what needs to come out of you needed to be different.
Right.
And I what I'm hearing is that one of the that started with Shane, like reconciling the relationship with him and what that was going to look like, because it sounded like you needed to rebuild a great deal of trust. um,
Mhm.
Tell us about Shane. Like, he's 16 years old now. What are his interests? What is your relationship like? Tell us about him.
Uh, Man, Shane, 16 years old, an amazing young man, straight A and B student ever since middle school, very full of life, energetic, um, personable. But he has his moments, just like all of us, where he just want to be to himself. And just like every teenager. Um, just like you touched on, he literally is the only reason why I could say I'm in this space right now,
Mm,
because I was blessed enough to be given a tangible form of God.
mm,
That sense where we're like, oh, I can't believe in this religion, or a religion, because all I'm reading is something that sounds fictitious to me. It's nothing in my hand. I may have a manuscript in my hand, but it's nothing tangible that I can see. I
mm,
see the total opposite. Um, and for autism parents, I encourage them to look at really the blessing that they've been given. And
mm,
one might sit there and say, well, how is my child having autism a blessing? If you look at the structure of their character, which is empathy, love, and compassion, these are things that consistently we, as neurotypical or normal people, strive for every single day. We fight ourselves to give that homeless person $5 because our mentality tells us, well, they're going to spend it on drugs or alcohol. We
mm,
fight with our heart when we try to give grace out to people who done us wrong.
mm,
I've been absent from my son's life for a while, just like I explained to you, and not once has he thrown that in my face.
mm,
How he combats that is by hugs, by giving grace, by telling me, by talking to me, inviting me into his world. And these are simple things in which we kind of just struggle with
mm,
every single day, trying to obtain. And our loved ones, all they want to do is just make sure everybody is happy, and we are happy and enriched in what they have going on. So Shane has definitely grown into a young man. He has overcome so many different obstacles as far as education,
Mhm.
social obstacles as well too. Um, you know, making friends and just being out of his shell and being social with other people. He's comfortable in his own skin. Once again, something which we have commercials on TV that tells us to be comfortable in our skin, and these individuals are comfortable just the way they are, and they're just like, hey, accept me the way I am, and I'm going to accept you the way you are. So he has and continues to teach me so many lessons.
What are some of his hobbies? What does he like to do?
I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot to touch on that. Trains. So we have literally ridden the regional rail over here in southeast Pennsylvania, so SEPTA. We have rode every line from beginning to end. We have taken trips to train museums to actually ride the train and to see all of the trains in there. And Shane has literally taught me about steam engines and the history behind them, which is, I don't know if anybody on here actually knows, but when you talk about the federal government and the funding and worst case scenario, let's knock on wood, the country shuts down. Do you know that they will dump money into the railroad system because that is one of the infrastructures of the United States? And I was taught that by Shane because
Wow.
that was originally one of the ways that goods and everything was actually transported through the entire country. It was the first way. It was the first medium of transportation. So he has taught me a lot. He's starting to get into drawing, which I'm really, really a fan of. And he actually makes these commercials. He actually puts together movie trailers of
Wow.
like fictitious movies that he will like to see in the future. And
Mhm.
when I tell you they're spot on, they almost look like they can literally be on the big screen. So he
Wow.
has a lot of different hobbies right now, and I'm enjoying the growth, like seeing him go from Thomas to tank engine to actual real engines. And funny enough, my toddler now likes Thomas and real trains. So now I got both of them that I got to kind of go through the cycle.
I love it. I love it. And I love to hear that you are learning from him and open to that, and just the way that you light up as you converse about him is always, it's always so good to see. Um so family relations coordinator.
Yeah.
Tell us what that means, how you got there,
Oh man.
and what you're doing with that work.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you. First, my job role is outreach. So
Mhm.
everything that I do, I coordinate the efforts to partner with community organizations, with some organizations outside of PA, Delaware, Jersey. I've been talking to organizations in Utah because they've seen my work or been a part of some of the events that I've thrown. So anything to engage with the community, to kind of see where the pieces have fell off. Obviously, because COVID, the healthcare industry has taken a vital blow, and that vital blow is connection with the community. That trust was lost, and obviously, so if you just think back during COVID, what are some of the things that actually happened and things that were going on with the vaccine? We understand that. My director, we're on the same page as far as initiating and engaging the community to make sure we are meeting the demands of the community. We can't just say, hey, be a part of our research, and not giving something back. Our motto is what we can do for you. And we'll talk about research later. What do you need, and how can we either facilitate that need for you, or we could get you to the right people that will be able to give you the resources. But we're always ready to educate and be a resource for our community. So that's the first piece. Second piece is going to sound like church up in here because you got to really believe there's a God if you listen to this. So, full transparency, I have a GED. I went to one of the best high schools in Philadelphia, Central High School, but due to my mom basically kicking me out because of her schizophrenia and depression, I did not open up to anyone there. I failed out of Central High School in 11th grade. One of my I can honestly say one of my only regrets, along with not opening up and telling my teachers what's going on at home, was not at least getting my high school diploma from Central High School. Um, I, from that point, has always been working 2 or 3 jobs. Fast forward, Shane was born. Um,
Mhm.
my absence from his life. Finally, I got my head out my you know what, and
Mhm.
um, and said, you know what, I want to show the world the beauty in my son. So I started a campaign called Team Shane and Friends, raised over $3,000 by myself, made a whole marketing plan, slogan, and everything.
Mhm.
Donated that to Autism Speaks, but I felt like I needed to do more. Uh,
Okay.
since 2014 until now, I started a platform called The Awesome Show, which is a podcast, and I have an online presence as well, advocating for autism fathers to basically get educated, to also learn and be heard and be acknowledged. Um,
Mhm.
that grew a lot of steam as I was working with organizations in Australia, Indonesia. People were just contacting me.
Mhm.
Fast forward to that, I became a corrections officer in 2016 in the state of Delaware, which I only stayed for about a year and a half, and was still doing the Awesome Show and writing articles for online magazines published worldwide.
Mhm.
Came fast forward into 2020, I want to say, uh, 21. And I got a call through a couple of different instances. I got a call from CHOP saying, "Hey, do you want a job?" Off of an application that I put in 2019. Now, at that time, I became a volunteer firefighter, which I am here in Hatfield, PA. And I said, "Yeah, you know what? I was looking for a new job." Um, the toddler, my baby, my son Alejandro was, just starting to bloom. And you know what? I was like, this will be a good thing.
Mhm.
Got to CHOP, love security, and I learned about the Center for Autism Research being at CHOP, and it was one floor in the Roberts building where I work at. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to get in there, but I need to work there.
Mm.
So a couple weeks later, I got a call from a director in CHOP in the Center for Autism Research and say, "Hey, we have this program called LEND. This is a national cohort program all over the nation. It stands for Leadership, Education, and Neurodiversity." And
Mhm.
she said, "Would you like to present in front of the LEND Fellows?" And I said, "Great."
Mhm.
Happened to be that I was the only father to ever present in that cohort for years. Like, that program has been around for years, and I was the only father ever to
Mm.
present. Um, and the director came to me and she said, "I think we have a position for you."
Wow.
And I want to listen more. So they offered me the position, but the position had, you needed a bachelor's degree. It's the same
Mhm.
position that I'm in now. You need a bachelor's degree. And I said, "Well, you know what? I'm sorry to say this, but I don't have a bachelor's degree. All I have is a GED." They literally said, "Give us 2 weeks." They came back in 2 weeks and they took that requirement off.
Wow. I say that's you are right where you are supposed to be.
Listen, I had an opportunity when they did that and they offered. I had an opportunity with Philadelphia Fire Department to be a firefighter within the city.
Mhm.
And the way that they did it was they were just pushing me through every requirement because I already am certified nationally as a firefighter. So they
Mhm.
was just pushing me through, and they were like, "Hey, you're in class 200." And then I got the offer from the Center for Autism Research, and I asked my wife, I said, "What am I to do?" And she said,
Mhm.
"You got to follow your heart. You love doing both. Both are saving people and helping people in need. But
Mhm.
what drives you more? Will you be happy working in Philly Fire and still not knowing that you'll be able to attend events and talk to people about your story and help them off the ledge and help families stay together? Or will you be working at CAR and be mad that you're not running and burning buildings and helping people that way?"
Right.
And I sat there and I thought about it. I was like, well, I can still work as a volunteer
Mhm.
here and work at CAR and do what I do. So I went with the latter, which was the Center for Autism Research. And here I am today being fulfilled. So, I, once again, if you don't see the God in that, or the spiritual, the higher power in that, there was no reason why I should have got that job. But it aligned so perfectly from that one call of me going in security. It aligned so perfectly. And once again, Shane taught me that patience. So even though I was in security, I was patient where I was at and working that job to the best of my ability. And it was looked upon. And then they seen everything else that I was doing outside of work and my advocacy work and still going out in the community. And someone saw that and invited me in. And on top of that, they offered me a job. And they said, we believe in you so much that the other 20, 30, 40, 50 people that are applying for this job that has that degree, we're not going to take them. We're going to take you, and we're going to pay you decent. We're going to pay you what you should be getting paid to actually do your job. So yes, I am blessed in my purpose.
Can the whole church say amen? You know, like
there you go.
There's nothing else to say to that.
Yeah.
What a blessing to you, but what a blessing for the community. You know, while you were blessed, you continue to bless other people. And you know, I shared with you in our prep call when we were conversing that we're going up into our 8th year anniversary, and we have been you know, we, for the entire time that we've been in existence, we've always highlighted Autism Awareness Month, and we've always put on some sort of programming. And one thing that I have always struggled with is to get men to talk about autism. This is the first year, like I've been like vibrating in my seat since I got this lineup together, because it really has taken the 7 years to have it come to fruition. And it has always been a dream of mine. Why are men so scared to talk about autism?
Because we have the society, we have social norms that we have to live up to. That doesn't fall within any construct of society whatsoever. You're supposed to be this alpha male and you're supposed to have it all together. Like that's really what everybody wants. That's the top tier male, has everything together going for them. They don't struggle with depression or anxiety or nervousness. And my factor or my question to people is like, where they do that at? You know, like besides videos or anything you see on TV or movies, where do they do that at? You know, we're only human. I think when people start to really realize that we are human and we are flawed, all of us are flawed, I don't care who you are, then you start to really understand that things that would normally stain your ego and your pride wouldn't affect you as much. You'll be able to give grace to people who have done you wrong, or maybe people who are looking to do you wrong. Like you're catching them, you're seeing this actually unfold. You're willing to walk away without retaliation. Um, we're faced against a deficit in society, whereas though we can't show emotion, and that is detrimental, especially in the Black and brown community. It is detrimental to us. We have been faced with nothing but emotion crushing events in the entire existence of the Black culture. And if you look at it, each one was set to kill us here, not here, but to kill us here first. And you know, I can speak from my personal experience. It's winning. And it's sad to actually see, because they are killing us with the mentality that, oh, if we keep on feeding this lavish life where it's Darwin's survival of the fittest, then we'll allow for Black brothers and sisters to get to a certain point, but it's a glass ceiling. You can't elevate past that construct that we have in place. Or, hey man, you can't be crying on camera, because that's not manly. Like, men don't cry, they smile and they congratulate, and off camera you still can't be in your feelings, because that shows a weakness, and that's feminine energy. Once again, when I really started to understand the Bible, and I remember one of my favorite books in the Bible, which really helped me understand shame in my life, was the book of Job. And if anybody is familiar with the book of Job, Job was a honest man. He was a man of God. He did everything right. He had the beautiful wife. He had the children. He had just success. He reaped what he sowed. And God made a deal with the devil and took all, and allowed the devil to take all of that from him. Kids died, his wife died, all his cattle, everything. He lost everything. And in the midst of this, he sat and he sat alone. When friends were coming around, they taunted him. This is your God. This is what he does. And he sat in it. He had lepers. He had everything. And he said, this is my God. Don't get me wrong. He did question God, But he said, this is a God who's been true and faithful for me, and I will forever say his name. But he had a moment of breaking down, of crying, of wishing, of trying to understand why. And that was the compassionate side. And it is in these books which show men actually being compassionate. But we have a society that says you can't be like that because that's showing a weakness. I'm sorry, but it's just society and accountability within my spiritual beliefs. I think I'm taking the spiritual beliefs over anything else because that's guiding me to the next level of life every step that I take. I'm close to 50. This is a next level of life. So from everything that I've learned from 30 on to now is now another level. And if I to follow society, I probably will lose all this and be divorced by next year.
So how are you helping your counterparts? How are you helping your Black men? How are you helping change the trajectory and the language and what it is that we are gravitating to?
Just like this, being transparent, being open with my story, going into places and introducing myself first and what I've been through, with the deep understanding that I'm still working on myself currently right now. Still being open. I actually have a therapist that I go to right now. I
Mhm.
talk to a therapist because I need that. Why do I need that? Because I still have traumas from my past that I'm still dealing with. Am I looking to give that trauma not only to my children, not only to my wife, but to another male that's coming to me for advice? Can't
Mhm.
do that.
Mhm.
So by me being an open book for men to come to, and the first thing is not even autism. When I get a call from a male or maybe a wife or a girlfriend be like, you need to talk to him, please. The first thing I say is, my name is Jamiel. I want to tell you about my life a little bit if you'll allow me. And majority of the time they'll let me. And just like I've told you a lot about my life, I go down everything. And I say, here I am right now with a son that has autism, and I'm talking to you. How can I help you in what you're going through in your life? And whether they tell me some of their experiences or not, that's up to them. But by them hearing my heart and what I've been through, and for them to see me physically in front of me, like this guy don't even know me, and he's just letting loose on everything that he's been through, is now allowing them to switch, to make that decision. Okay, am I going to be, hardcore or be that tough guy, or am I going to be able to finally let go of my frustrations, my anger, my disappointments, my depression onto this man who is willing to receive that and give back positive energy? I'm all in 24/7. I give people my cell phone number consistently to give me a call, because if I can save a marriage, if I can save a man from just totally deleting himself from his children's life, I'm literally doing what I've been put on this planet to do.
Amen. This conversation is about so much more than just you being on the spectrum with your son about that journey. Um, he was used to help bubble up your purpose. I believe your purpose lived and abided you the entire time,
Yeah,
but his presence bubbled that up to the top. It gave you a reason to actually dig deep and figure out what it is that you needed to do. Um,
definitely.
you said, a large part of your life was spent dealing with the streets or in one capacity or another. And as Moms of Black Boys United, first and foremost, one of our concerns is always how our Black men and boys are treated by law enforcement in society, how they're viewed, what the perceptions of them are. But a very, very close and probably just as, not even probably, actually, just as important is understanding silent disability, the way that people respond to commands, the anxiety and the sometimes social deficits that exist with an autism diagnosis. What kinds of conversations are you having with Shane as he gets to the point where driving it becomes an issue, and he's going to start navigating, if he's not already, your community independently and those kinds of things? What concerns do you have? What are those conversations like? We call it the talk. We're on the new talk. We're changing that talk, by having these kinds of conversations. But we do know, the old talk still exists. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
So the conversations that I have are geared a different way. So, I'm going to, once again be transparent as far as the conversations. Um, I tell Shane, and he's actually been in the car with me when I was pulled over by police. And immediately when lights go on and obviously they're hailing me to kind of stop my vehicle, immediately I tell Shane, hey, we are being pulled over. I need your hands in a place where the officer can see them. That's the first thing. As I'm getting things ready, my license, my registration out, I'm actually telling Shane the process. I want you to get your license and registration out. I want you, if you have tint on your windows like daddy, I want you to put all the windows down and I want you to turn the light on inside the cabin. I want you to keep your hands still. So when the officer arrives, how you doing is the first thing. I don't want to teach Shane to come off ignorant. I want him to be able to learn how to announce himself or at least say a proper greeting. And then during the conversation, I'm always keeping my cool and advising Shane to give information, including his diagnosis, if this ever happens in the future. That's important. A lot of people are like, well, you don't have to dispose that information. That can be the difference between life or death. And you got to really think about that. Oh, do I want Shane to say, oh, I'm, going to keep quiet. I don't want to reveal my diagnosis to this officer. And now this officer is knowing my son fidgeting with his hands. What's the one thing that police are going to think? Oh, this person might be on drugs or they might be intoxicated. Sir, you're going to have to get out the vehicle. Now my son is really riddled with anxiety. So now his body and his mind are not cooperating together. So he might have a moment of either fight or flight, or he might sit there and start talking to himself because of the nervousness or not paying attention to cues that the officer is giving them, which can land him in handcuffs in the back of a car for no reason. Why? Because I taught him not to give or uh, unveil his diagnosis. That's incorrect. So I tell Shane, the first thing you want to do is you want to see that person as a person and as an officer second. That means treating them with respect, making sure you announce yourself. And if that person is not respectful for you, you still maintain your cool in that time and say, hey, listen, my name is Shane Owens. This is my diagnosis. If you need further information, you can contact either one of my parents. A lot of people disagree with me with that. But you have to remember is that I'm teaching my son on a different level than what society says he should actually do. And that's on the spiritual. I go all the way back to that. That's on a spiritual level. So if Shane can connect with this person and let them know there is nothing for you to worry about. I am not a threat to you, but I need you to acknowledge and hear who I am as a person so we can make this situation as smooth as possible and I can carry on with my life. Shane needs to do that so he can get home and he can make it home. On top of that, I've initiated autism town halls, law enforcement agencies. My third one I had was with the Pennsylvania State Police not too long ago, about a month ago. And this is the idea to bring law enforcement agencies and the neurodiverse community together to learn off of each other. And they have specialized classes, which the officers actually learn from, as well as the parents. So all of us are actually learning in an environment together. But the greatest thing is we're starting to have these conversations and change the perception of law enforcement. So this is it's really, you want to ask yourself, do you want your child to come home or do you want them to stand up for their rights? And it's a hard ask for me because you want them to stand up for your rights. You want them to be vocal in what's right or what's wrong. But do you want them to come home? Because in doing so, they might be in a situation where they're outnumbered and it's not looking good. We got to teach our kids to think with this. This is the strongest weapon that they have. Not these, but this. My son, he's not fighting. He's not a fighter. But if I can teach him to articulate himself and to make sure that he's concise with his words and his understanding of directions, I know that my son is going to walk through that door with no problems every single night when he starts to drive. And to me, that's a win. not feeding his ego and saying, hey, you got to be this certain way. And if somebody sits there and tests you, you got to look at it like that. No.
Mhm.
It's about here. See that officer as a person first, announce him or her as a person respectfully. If they do not give you respect back, announce the disrespect, but still continue to give them respect. What does that fall in line with? Kill them with kindness, right?
Mhm.
Love thy neighbor, right? This is Shane's neighbor. Even though he don't live close to him, this is his neighbor.
Mhm.
So I'm teaching him to consistently love on that person. The transaction is over. If Shane is not doing anything and he falls in line, and that officer can be ignorant from beginning to end. Shane's not doing nothing but following the commands, announcing himself, giving him the information that's needed, not requested, but that's needed. And at the end of the day, if Shane's getting a ticket, he'll get a citation or a ticket, but he's able to go. That's a win.
How do you teach them to mitigate the anxiety? What is it? What compensatory strategies do you guys have? Do you work on to kind of mitigate that anxiety? Because inevitably we all get anxious, right? I still get anxious if the police pull me over. So what are some of those trainings that you're doing with him to kind of keep that piece of him cool?
Breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe. And the one thing that I kind of tell him, which I had to learn for myself, and this speaks so much, not only in this situation, but men, if you're you're doing wrong,
Mm,
and you know what I'm talking about, breathe.
mm,
If you are not guilty, you have nothing to worry about.
mm,
If you are guilty, then yes, you're going to start sweating profusely. You're going to start fidgeting. But if you have nothing to worry about and everything is as right as you're supposed to be, you have nothing to worry about.
mm,
Why are you going to get anxious? So every time I tell Shane, breathe, breathe in, breathe out, relax, breathe in, breathe out. I do inform him to stop playing around with his hands, because once again, that is a agitation, and an officer can see that as a different form of characteristic. Once
mm,
again, wants to say leading to drug or alcohol abuse. So
mm,
I make sure his hands are visible and they're on his lap, but I
mm.
tell him just to breathe in and breathe out and be calm. That's it. That's all I teach them. Breathe in and breathe out. If you have nothing to fear, if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to fear about. If you are doing something wrong, it's going to come out. It's about to come out in light, and you have to own that. You're going to have to step up and you're going to have to own that. But if you're fine, you have nothing to worry about.
All right. So I know you just had a recent event.
Yes.
And you said you had 91 dads show up to the event. So first tell us what the event was, what was the purpose of the event, and tell us how it went.
So, first ever Autism Fathers Conference in Philadelphia. It was on April 6th. The focus of this was something that I dreamt about. When I mean I dreamt about, like I literally seen a vision 2 years prior to my position here, where I wanted to gather all men of all faiths, nationalities, backgrounds, economical status into one building, into these social groups, to talk about their feelings, to unpack what's going on in their particular homes, to come into the door one way, but to leave out a changed man, someone better, not only for their household, but for their community. So what we did is we did an open call for organizations to participate. I have a very vast network of organizations. I had 60 resource tables there. 60. That means that men were walking away with tangible resources in their hand that they can go home and read, or go home to their wife and say, hey, babe, look at all this information that I've read. Now that's creating a bonding experience between husband and wife. That's creating more opportunities for growth. If these two, mom and dad are not together, for dad to at least step up and say, you know what? I didn't realize how much work you was doing. Thank you for this. I'm ready to actually meet you where you're at so I can help you out with our child. Um, we got 91 men. 91 men actually registered. There was actually 91 men and about 15 moms. So we did open it up to autism moms and non-male caregivers. So we had a safe space for them. But 91 men actually showed up that day, and they fellowship, they building community. But most importantly, the meat of this conference was the actual groups, the social groups, for these men to be broken into these groups, to talk about their feelings, to talk about how they perceive the diagnosis and what they see in the future for their child, their family, but most importantly themselves. So we're getting feedback currently right now to kind of unpack what we're looking for next year. But it was a lot of work. Was it worth it? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I've done everything. I had 19 members on my planning committee.
Mhm.
I was in charge of the fundraising. I raised $10,000, which
Mhm.
was great because people saw the need and the vision for this. My goal is to continue this so that every state will see what I'm doing. They can call me, I can tell them how they did it, and they can implement this in their respective states. It is needed. This is needed. And I'm so happy that I was able to do this. Another one of God's gifts to me was to be able to facilitate this for more men to see. So
Well, congratulations. And I think that is amazing because I remember the first time you and I spoke, and that was probably about 3 weeks ago.
yeah.
And you told me you were considering canceling it.
Yep. Yes, I was, because the attendance wasn't popping like that. I was getting like maybe 10, 12 dads, and I was like, this is not looking good. And
You
I
know,
sat here and prayed on it. I actually fast too. Asked my wife, I said, you know what can I do right now to kind of enrich, my wanting for this, but also to strip the negative away. Because once we're ingesting all of this negative feeling, these vibes from TV, television, radio. And I say, you know what? I'm going to remove myself from secular music, from secular shows until the conference is over. And I'm actually still doing it now. And what this did was it relieved a lot of anxiety. It gave me back my faith, like this is going to happen regardless. Don't worry about it. And look, it was delivered to me. 91 men that I've never met before in my life were there listening to not only me, but other guest speakers as well. I mean, once again, the proof is in the pudding. I can't make this up.
yeah, I mean, it's an amazing testimony because before we went live, and you were like 91 people, and I was like, gosh, we just spoke 3 weeks ago. You told me you were canceling this thing. I was like, well, let me give you some names of people I know that that might, come and attend that in the general area. So kudos to you again. Your story is just really such an inspiration. It's such a teaching to people. You mentioned that the program that you're running at CHOP is a cohort, and it happens nationally. So tell us how to reach you at CHOP. Tell us how to reach the cohort nationally in whatever state that people are in. And just your closing remarks and how we can find you or find the resources that fathers might need. Like you said, it is so needed. It is so important. I, I could use all kinds of words to describe it, but we need you duplicated, cloned across the nation. So tell us how to get in touch.
So you can get in touch with me two ways, which is by email, which is Owens, OWENS, J's and jump, D's and dog, at CHOP.edu. So that's my email address. If you're a person that likes immediate contact and assistance, this is all for my dads, also moms that need some help with reaching dad, whatever the case may be. My phone number, I don't mind giving it, is area code 445-247-2071. Reach out to me. Fellas, reach out to me. Text me, whatever the case may be. When you talk to me, I am a safe space. You can also visit me on Instagram under The Awesome Show, which is TheAusomeshow. Please reach out to me. The LEND cohort is with a particular healthcare organization. So if you have a healthcare system in your respective state, they more than likely have a program. So you can actually ask that particular institution if they have a LEND program, LEND. They might have it. And the best thing about this program is not only doctors and physicians, they actually need participants, which are self-advocates or family advocates. So you could actually be a part of this cohort. It's amazing. Lastly, before we get out of here, I just want to let each and every one of you know that I love you. And I say that with all sincerity. The reason being is not because I'm on this show, even though it is. I'm gratefully and I'm blessed. is because God allowed for my heart to open, for me to let go of my pain, to let go of my past um, uh, indiscretions. He allowed for me to grow, and He allowed for me to be able to be in a position where my purpose is being met, and I can say this with all of my heart: I love you. And I want to see nothing but the best for not only you and your child. So please, please reach out to me. Let's talk. Let's build on each other, and let me help you be the advocate in which I knew and what God set you out to be.
Amen. The Awesome Show. When does it air?
Awesome Show is on Saturdays at 9 a.m. I know it's pretty early. And that's on Wiz Radio, WHIZ-radio.com. But you can also go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you podcast at, and you can find the Awesome Show on there as well, too.
Jamiel, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I can't thank you enough for just being transparent and sharing even your flaws with us. We know that sometimes people just need to connect with us, and know that we can meet them where they are. And you are certainly meeting your community where they are, and much more, and just being a wonderful resource to everyone. So thank you so much for joining us. I
Thank you.
really appreciate you. Stay tuned for our next episode next week on the 22nd. We are looking forward to talking with everyone in the community. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Peace.